There's some sort of cleanliness I desire in my life. I'm not rich to own the most beautiful things in the world, but the little things I own should be beautiful. It should beautify my life and beautify the space I find myself in. My husband understands this. In fact, it's the only thing I drummed in his ears when we were dating. But maybe he misunderstood me, or maybe I was the one who misunderstood him. When I went to his house and saw a mess and cleaned it up, to me, it was a message I was sending across. After all, there's a mess in a message. All pun intended. When I told him, no, you don't have to leave this here. You don't have to leave bowls uncleaned overnight. When I told him not to do this and that, I thought I was communicating my desire for a clean space in a clear language that he could understand. But like I said, I overestimated the power of my actions. We dated for 4 years. I saw a change. I noticed the change easily because it was a huge improvement considering what I saw of him from the beginning. I would go to his house for a visit and his room would be spotless. Everything would be where I left them the last time I arranged his place. I was happy. Anytime I saw something in order, I told him, "You're doing very well for taking care of your space. See where your laundry is. Well arranged and well kept. What do you want me to do for you as a reward?" Just name it. He'll brush me aside and call me a tease, but I was serious about everything I said. Of course, life is not all about cleanliness. There's more. There are other things that contribute to the beauty of life. He shone brightly in those other areas. He was a very patient man. He hardly got angry. If you pick a fight with him, you'll end up doing the fight all by yourself. At worst, he'll walk away and leave you standing with yourself. Or when you send a text out of anger, he'll read and ask you, "So what do you want me to do now?" I will put the anger aside and tell him what he's supposed to do. He'll do it and ask me, "Happy now?" That in itself was very annoying, but I came to appreciate it. I grew used to it because it was a positive thing. We got married in 2019 and moved in together. Then everything I worked for over the years came to zilch. We started arguing a lot. It worried my heart often, but he saw it as me overreacting. Every night after we had eaten, I would clean everything in the sink, place them where they are supposed to, mop the floor of the kitchen, and close it. It signals the end of the day. So, we'll wake up in the morning with a good-looking kitchen and start a new day with everything looking fresh. My husband is a late eater. Sometimes, just before we go to bed, he'll go to the kitchen, heat something up, and eat before coming to bed. I don't have issues with that, but guess what? He'll leave the dirty dish in the sink, swing his watery hands so the water in his palm would splash around the kitchen, leave the microwave open without even turning off the switch, and then come to bed. So, I will wake up in the morning and see ants lined up somewhere over a morsel he left on the ground last night when he ate. You'll see ants marching around the dirty dish, doing justice to the leftovers on the plate. It hurts my heart a lot and kills the light I wake up with each morning. So darling, I clean the kitchen each night, so we won't have a marching army in our kitchen every morning. Could you please wash the bowls you eat from in the night? It's just one. There's soap, there's running water. Just a few seconds and you're done. Let's not invite these little soldiers into our kitchen each morning. I've communicated, right? But that day, he came home in the evening with an insecticide spray and told me, "Let's spray them when they come. When they all die, we won't have them coming into the kitchen at night when we are sleeping." Talk about missing the point. It's the ants' right to exist. God gave them life and they ought to live it the best way they can. The only issue is, they don't have to live their lives in our kitchen. And if we don't want them there, then we don't have to do things that would invite them over. So he'll leave a morsel here and there. The ants will come, and he'll spray them. He'll leave dishes in the sink and rather kill innocent ants. Soon, a can of insecticide is finished, but the ants still come around because you can't dim their shine. Kill thousands and thousands will reappear. That's how they win their battles. To avoid that, every night my husband comes to bed, I had to wake up, go to the kitchen and inspect if everything is all right. 90% of the time, he would leave a dirty dish in the sink. The lockdown was the worst moment of my life in this marriage. It was just the two of us in the house every day. He'll go to the bath, shave wherever he would find hair, and leave the hair and the blade around. So darling, why didn't you clean them up after shaving? He will say, I cleaned it, but you know how hair is. They are so tiny you can't possibly clean everything up. But I will go there and get everything cleaned up. He'll bathe and come to the bedroom with the wet towel and leave it on the bed. He'll take off his boxers and wouldn't mind where he puts them. He'll use cotton swabs to remove his ears and leave it right where he picked the clean ones. Sachet water rubber in the hall, biscuit covering in bed, and shaving stick in the kitchen. I have to move after him, pick his dirt, and clean after him. We had our first fight. It wasn't a fight I ended up doing all alone. A real fight where he fought back. He was angry and I was in a very bad state of mind. It's the way he used the toilet. I've complained about it on several occasions and his words were, is it not just a toilet? Or you're going to sleep there? Is that where you eat your food when it's served? Those comments were annoying, but that day, I took it all in and tried as much as I could to help him see the reason why we ought to keep the facility in good shape. This one morning, I went there and there were toilet stains all over. I ignored it and sat on it. My butt got wet, so I got up immediately. I asked myself, what would it take for this man to lift the lid before peeing? Does it take his masculinity away if he cleans up his own mess? So I went inside and asked him these same questions. He answered, you're the one who eats in the toilet. I don't. I do what's supposed to be done there. If you have a problem with that, you can go to the public toilet. The woman in me was hurt. His language bruised my calm, so I talked back. You won't tell me what to do around here when you're the one making life hard for me. I will lock the toilet. You can also go to the public toilet. Even in that place, you're not allowed to treat the facility the way you do around here. What does it take from you to clean after yourself? What are your hands doing beside you? Or you think they are there for decorations? You're not a Christmas tree, so pick yourself up and clean the mess you create. He talked and I talked back. For whole several minutes, we exchanged words. He concluded, even the person who invented hygiene was killed by hygiene. If you can't live here, go to heaven. You may find the kind of cleanliness you seek there. In the evening, I went to the toilet and saw the same thing again. He was trying to communicate, and I got it clearly. It said, this is what I'm going to do every day. Deal with it or die. Of course, I'm not going to die. I'll rather deal with it than lay dying. Don't get me wrong, I love my husband so much. As I indicated from the beginning, life isn't only about cleanliness or only about where to put what. It's a whole package. Some call it a fruit salad. You won't have everything to be sweet. There are bitter portions to deal with as well. I take this as the bitter portion I have to deal with. It's so unfortunate that this portion means a whole lot to me than I can ignore. If I decide to close my eyes on this side of his life, we'll end up living in an unhealthy place. We don't have kids yet. They'll be coming very soon. And that's also my biggest fear. I can't pick up after kids and also pick up after a grown man. There's a point a woman gets tired and gets numb. I don't want to get to that point where I'll sit and watch everything rot. So this is what I've decided to do. I will file for separation to see if he change, so he knows that I am serious. I feel like if he truly loves me he would change. The following day I went to a lawyer and drafted a separation agreement. My intent was to scare him and to show him that I am serious. I can't continue to wake up to see marching ants in my kitchen. I can't continue to bathe and clean the lather on the tiles because lathers don't belong to the tiles. I can no longer tolerate seeing used cotton swab on the fridge and no toilet stains in the WC. These are the little things I require in my living space, but it looks like too much for him. If we continue living together, little things like these would eat away the love we have for each other and turn us bitter. I would look at him and see toilet stains instead of my husband. Or I will see a used cotton swab somewhere and remember how my husband looks like. This is not the kind of image I want to build of him. When we get to that point, we'll constantly fight. We'll invite people into our marriage and they'll call me petty because they might not see what those things mean to me. I want to avoid all these scenarios. When he came back from work, I served him with the separation papers. He totally blew a gasket. His reaction was opposite what I expected. He knocked it out of my hand and he took the paper and tore it into pieces. He almost got physical with me. He called me petty and told me that I am overreacting and that I don't know the meaning of marriage. I responded that I warned him several times and he forced my hand and made our living space unbearable. Instead of him accepting responsibility and promising me to change, he told me that I am free to leave if I want. After we were done arguing that evening, he went into the room. I have never seen that side of him before. A part of me thought maybe I have gone too far. I slept on the couch contemplating what just happened, whether I have done the right thing. Don't get me wrong, I was still in love with my husband. I was just hoping that this would be a wake-up call. That night I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I went into the master bathroom only to find it unkept. I said to myself that this man haven't changed. Not even 6 hours ago we had the biggest fight we have ever had and he still remained the same. That moment I made up my mind that I was going to separate from him. I left for work early before he could wake up so I don't get to see him. When I got to work I was the only one there, so I took some time to search for apartment online. I finally decided that I would move back in with my parents. I was still hoping that my husband would change. He has done it before, surely he can do it again. Finding an apartment would make it appear like I am divorcing him. However, moving in with my parents, we show him what he was missing when I am not there. My parents live about 150 miles away from us. My company also has a branch close to my parent house, so when the HR came in that day I wrote a letter asking them to transfer me. In the afternoon I went back home when I knew he wasn't home, so I could pack my things. I went to stay with a friend. Mind you, throughout the day I didn't receive a call from him to apologize on how he treated me when I served him the divorce papers. When he came home that evening and realized that I was actually going through with the separation, he started blowing up my phone. When I finally answered, he told me to come back home. He told me that he would change, but I didn't believe him. I felt like he was just saying when he needed to say to get me to move back in and live in filth with him. My friend even told me to cool off my relationship for a bit so he would realize how much he needs me. I ignored his calls and text message for almost a week as I planned to move in with my parents. I read his text messages, but I wouldn't respond. He even called my parents and told them what happened, and my parents tried to get me to reconcile, but I told them to stay out of it. 2 weeks after separation he drove to my parents' house to win me back. I was hesitant, but then, I was still in love with him. I just wanted him to change for real and not give me lip service. I don't want to go through all this only to find out that he is still the same. My parents told me that I was being petty, just what I expected them to say. They told me that I should give him another chance and that marriage is not always so rosy. I listened to their advice, and I told him that he should give me a month to get myself together. We should start things slow. A part of me wanted to punish him for not taking me seriously. I told him that we would talk on the phone every day and get to know one another over again. So, he knows what sort of cleanliness I desire in my life. He agreed. For about a week we spoke on the phone every day. Then after a week or so, the phone calls started to drop off. He stopped initiating the calls. I remember the day he stopped calling. On the second day, I thought maybe he was ill or maybe something was wrong with his phone. I waited for the third day. When I didn't get a call from him, I thought something must be wrong, so I took it upon myself to call him. He picked up and claimed that he was busy for work, which is why he didn't pick up my call. That wasn't how this was supposed to work. I knew he was lying. I started to panic. I felt like he was losing interest in our relationship. I got suspicious. So that evening I asked my friend that lives next to us to check on my husband to see if he was spending time at home. My friend drove by my house and told me that there was another car in the driveway. She took a picture of the license plate and sent it to me. I looked up the license plate and was shocked to find out that it was a younger woman. I didn't know her and haven't heard of her before. It now made sense why he wasn't calling me as often as before. He must be having an affair. I immediately called him and confronted him. I asked him who the woman was and that I know what is going on. He tried to lie about it, but then I mentioned the girl's name. Then he started being defensive, accusing me of leaving him and abandoning the marriage. I was mad at him and hanged up the phone. I went to bed crying that night. I thought about traveling back home that night to chase that harlot out of my house before she ruins any chance of fixing my marriage. The following day I took time off from work and drove back home. My husband was at work when I got home. I tried to open the door and he had already changed the locks to the house. I immediately called him asking him why he changed the lock. He tried to lie by telling me that he lost his keys, which is why he changed the locks. I had a feeling that he had already given up on me. It was just a thought in my mind, but I didn't want to admit it. When he got back home that night, we had a conversation. And I felt like he was hiding something from me. When I told him that I wanted to move back in, he didn't seem excited, and I questioned and pushed him until he finally admitted that he has been sleeping with another woman. I was mad at him, and he blamed it on me and wouldn't take any responsibility. Maybe I should have stayed with him that night. Maybe filing the separation papers was the wrong idea. Maybe moving out totally backfired on me, but what could I have done? Continue to live in filth? I still love my husband. That's what hurts the most. I couldn't stay in the house that night. I was so hurt I went to stay with my friend. He didn't even plead for me to stay. I felt like he had totally given up on our marriage. I don't know what to do now. I feel like my husband is in the fog phase of an affair and don't realize what he was missing, but something in my head is telling me that my relationship is over, and I don't know how to salvage it. What should I do?
Sounds like the original poster was married to a pig. In all seriousness, marriage is not easy. You took a vow, and it's expected that you are compatible with the person before getting married to them. But the problem was she thought she could change him, only to find out years later that they're not compatible. You see, she knew that before she got into that marriage, but she thought she could change him. Some people are comfortable with a certain level of cleanliness, and you can't change that about them. The more you try to change them, the more they resent you. It is very difficult to change a person, so the decision has to be made by the self. It is very common for women to think that they can change a man. She wanted to control him, and she planned a way to separate from him, but it backfired. You could also generalize the lesson from this story to certain women that think they can change a bad boy to a good boy. See, society see women as failure if they're not able to lock down a man. And then if they get a man, he has to be the top 20% of men. He can't be average, because if he's an average man, she's going to try to change him. The expectation is that if you're a good woman, you are supposed to be able to change him, where they'll be shocked to find out that most men are average. And it's okay. This is horrible for both men and women. It's the idea that men need fixing. Don't get me wrong, it's always good for men to level up. But if you come into a relationship with an idea that you need to fix that person, then it appears that men need fixing and women are responsible for the fixing. So according to this logic, men has to be caught, married, and molded, while women are supposed to be responsible for his behavior as well as her own from that point forward. This kind of logic leads to toxic relationship that ain't good for anyone. A part of why ideas like this take hold for so long is that people don't want to admit defeat and be thought of as bad people. What woman wants to say that they failed to change a man? What man wants to say that he spent years with someone who didn't like him and was trying to fix him? When this doesn't work, that can only mean one or two things for the woman. It can mean that society is right, and she wasn't good enough woman to change the man in question. Then there are endless questions about what the woman did wrong and the endless advice regarding what she can still do to fix him. Or it could mean that society was wrong, and just at that time when her relationship is falling apart, she's not only trying to adjust to major life changes and mourning the relationship, but also dealing with bucking a worldview. Save yourself a lot of headache and look for someone compatible with yourself in the way that are most important to you. Don't look for someone to fix or someone to fix you. That old tired thinking doesn't work and is harmful for everyone involved.